This video is sponsored by Displate. Over the last few decades, open world games have made incredible strides. With each generation, the worlds get bigger, the graphics better, the content richer. As computing power absolutely rocketed, open world games blazed the path for how it could be. And by 2013, games were recreating cities like LA and San Francisco in jaw-dropping detail.
Yes.
It was evident. These games were the future. And that future was looking great. Then something started happening. See, the promises kept getting bigger, the trailers more and more impressive. But when it came to the actual games, well, something was off. Destiny looked amazing. But then its entire story was gouged out and repackaged as paid DLC.
Yep.
No Man's Sky looked incredible. But when it launched, every trailer turned out to be an outright lie.
When it launched.
Okay, at least we still
I've heard good things.
Jesus Christ. The tech was improving, but the games somehow seemed to be getting worse. And after countless disappointments, gamers were left famished. But in 2012, a small developer... It's early 2015. For the last few years, Todd Howard and the boys at Bethesda had been absolutely smashing sales numbers and raking in hundreds of Game of the Year awards in the process. Todd had built an open world empire. But now, he was finishing up his next blockbuster game, Fallout 4, set to release at the end of the year. However, at the same time, a relatively obscure developer based in Poland is doing the same thing.
Poland?
For the last few months, CD Projekt Red had been putting the finishing touches on the third installment of their open world fantasy series. It had been 3.5 years of blood, sweat and tears, but now things were finally wrapping up. And in May 2015, The Witcher 3 is set to release. CD Projekt Red's management sits round. Review copies had been sent out a few weeks prior, and the reviews were expected at any moment. The suspense was palpable. But eventually, the reviews come in, and the game is absolutely staggering. It snaps with 9s and 10s across the board, and the game flies off shelves everywhere. Millions of dollars of profits are conjured almost instantly. Management is euphoric. Impressive. But wait, we have a game too. And the massively anticipated Fallout 4 is released a few months later. It does very well, and also gets raving reviews. '15's Game Awards are tense.
User score.
Game devs from all around the world are sat down, anxiously waiting for the big one. Game of the Year. Todd had won the majority of the Game of the Year awards for the last 4 games he directed, and he was keen to win them for this one too. The developers sit through hours of obscure awards. But eventually, Game of the Year is announced.
The Witcher 3.
In fact, it ends the year winning the
Look
most
at this
Game
guy,
of the
man.
Year awards ever. Bethesda's streak of wins burned to ashes. Todd was furious. Put the gun down, Todd.
Okay. What's his name, Pete Hines? Okay.
And while the rest of the industry turns to repackaging free mods into paid DLC, enormous graphical downgrades, and literal lies about their games and trailers, CD Projekt Red gets to work on 2 massive expansion packs, big enough to be a whole game of their own. And turns out, they're half the price of Fallout 4's. Also, did someone say free DLC? People were in love. Move after move, everything CD Projekt did was just right. After 28 years in the business, they'd finally made it.
This is really good pretext.
So new fans of the studio rush to see their next project. Another Witcher? No. A different fantasy franchise? Also no. Eventually, they find themselves on a video uploaded a couple of years prior.
Oh my
CyberPunked
God.
2077. A teaser trailer for CD Projekt Red's next game.
The hype.
Looked cool. Details on it are sparse, but here's what we know. It was more ambitious than The Witcher 3 on every single front, and was basically a futuristic RPG version of GTA. Sign me up. The release date? Well, when it was ready. Okay, so people wait. And wait. And wait. It's now 2017, and after 2 years of waiting, there's still no word. And the game, along with the studio, drifts back into obscurity. But finally, in 2018, we get something. The hype is resurrected instantly.
Okay.
But not for long.
Okay.
Turns out, Todd is also at E3, and he has a little something to show off. Fallout 76.
Oh, what the fuck?
The first multiplayer Bethesda Game Studios RPG ever made.
Again, the
And
hype,
it was
man.
launching in just a few
Jesus
months.
Christ.
Todd's promises were
Jesus.
impressive. Sorry, CD Projekt, but there was only one thing to do. And after months of excitement, in November 2018, Fallout 76 goes live. It didn't quite live up to the hype. Tales of missing canvas bags, scuffed merchandise, exploits, and a literal horde of bugs flood online forums and Reddit almost the second the game launches. YouTubers jump on the game like a pack of dogs. Bethesda fights back with a few patches. Patches that were almost bigger than the size of the actual game. But they never stood a chance. A god had fallen.
True.
Gamers mourned their death for months. But at this point, open-world game developers were dropping like flies. Rockstar had ditched GTA's single-player DLC to sell flying cars and laser guns to 10-year-olds in GTA Online. BioWare's games had regressed about a decade, and something at Bethesda had clearly gone horribly wrong.
The game is destabilizing!
CD Projekt was the only developer people had left, and they put their full faith in them to deliver on Cyberpunk 2077. And CDPR aimed to do just that. In August 2018, they drop a 50-minute demo of the game, alongside a sea of articles and press releases. It looks mind-blowing. Non-linear missions with tons of choices and branching endings. A game world and storyline that reacts to your actions. Complex community and crowd systems that would make for the most believable city in an open-world game to date. Random encounters and events. Player backstories with far-reaching campaign consequences. Explorable buildings with multiple floors. Multiple apartments. An in-depth wanted system and corrupt police.
Oh my
All
goodness, man.
Over 1,000
Just
NPCs
why all
with their
these
own
promises?
missions.
Just
An
why?
online multiplayer added post-launch. And
It's so
more.
crazy.
And it would be available on
I mean, I'm
every
sure all-
current platform, including Xbox One and PS4. Things were shaping up great. But fast forward a few months, and at E3 2019, the final bombshell drops.
Wake the fuck up, samurai. We have a city to burn.
CD Projekt Red had created something incredible. The graphics were borderline photorealistic, the city utterly immersive. Even Poland's own government were hyped. It was to be the first quadruple A game, people said. And we'd be able to jump in on April the 16th, 2020. The hype was monumental. Before we get onto that,
Quadruple A.
are those walls empty? My god. Hold on. What's that? A high quality metal poster for a reasonable price? That's right. This place specialises in one thing. Posters. Posters, posters, posters. 1.4 million different posters. Anything you could possibly want. Like gaming, sports, movies, or are you a gentleman of class? This plate has it all. Don't have a picture hook? Not a problem, because this plates use magnets. It's simple. Scrub wall, wait 10 minutes, sticker on wall, display on sticker. It's that easy. Super fast delivery, countless designs, and a tree planted in Africa after every purchase. And you can get a special discount
Really?
on displays through the link in the description. Also, check out the Big Boss displays.
I mean, I don't know what that does. Africa already is pretty lush, right? But okay. Maybe that's a joke. Probably a joke.
so people are hyped for the game. However, over at CD Projekt Red, things aren't going so great. Management says the game is launching in around a year's time, and things weren't moving quite as fast as they'd hoped. While the game technically started development in 2012, development basically just consisted of a few dozen people throwing ideas around. This goes on for a few years, but in 2016, the rest of CDPR finally jump on board. And most of their work is scrapped right out the game. Okay, so the game's story and gameplay concepts are reworked from the ground up. This means that key game elements are either completely changed or outright scrapped. Now the management at CDPR are still ambitious. This game was going to be a big one, and that meant that it was going to need a lot of work. But that was okay. They had 4 years of development ahead of them. Well managed and executed, this was going to be a breeze. 4 years later, and it's now January 2020, and the game is barely out of alpha. This is just 2 months out from launch. Higher-ups realise they should probably actually develop a finished game. So in comes CD Projekt Red's management. Wake the fuck up, game devs. We've got a game to crunch. And so, CDPR's PR team come out to the public. Sorry lads, it's not quite ready yet. Come back in a few months' time. It was okay. They still had a lot of development on their plate, but now they had more time.
I remember.
If everything goes according to plan,
I was there for that.
They should be able to get this thing out relatively polished. Sorry fellas, the country's closed. Come back in a few months' time. Dear God. Alright, less than 6 months left of development time, and now everyone's working from home. Not exactly ideal. Right boys, we're gonna have to cut some corners here. Multiple apartments? Scrap them. Wall running? Not important. The children? Forget them. See those adults? Downsize them. That looks great. And eventually, after months of crunch and a couple more delays, a new release date is in. December 10th, 2020. Early December. The board of directors look at each other, petrified. Their share price had rocketed to over $10 billion, and they were now the most valuable company on the Polish stock exchange. Poland's president calls CDPR. Their entire economy laid on the back of this game's launch. If it was a flop, they'd be executed one by one. They could not cock this up. They couldn't delay again, or they'd miss the holiday sales period. Investors would be furious. But on the other hand, the game was still a bit rough. They eventually come to a conclusion. Launch the game. Development had taken 7 years and cost $121 million. But at last, on December the 10th, the world would finally be able to play CyberPunked 2077.
Wow. What is that R stick?
December 9th, 1 day before launch. Early reviews are looking good. YouTubers and review sites aren't actually allowed to use their own game footage in them, which is a bit strange. But they're saying the game does the impossible. It actually lives up to the hype. That was it. People that hadn't already pre-ordered now had no reason to hold back. And the game racks up around 8 million pre-orders by launch.
I was there for that too.
7 years of patience, and almost a year of delays on top. But the wait was finally over. And at 12 AM on December 10th, CyberPunk launches, and people press play.
Man!
For PC players with decent rigs, the game runs reasonably well, the story is great, and the graphics are amazing. But stray away from the main missions for 5 minutes, and things start to seem off. Walk with me. We're walking around the most believable city in a video game to date, and yet that man barely has a face. Is he really disabled?
Wow.
Look at your own shadow. Does that look normal to you? Look at those people. Anything seem off? Look, a car's supposed to fly. Over there.
Oh my god, man.
Your inventory.
Oh, this game was so bad.
That looked like a katana to you?
Ah.
Is that really an assault rifle? Were you listening to me? Or were you looking at the man with no head? More issues. Incredibly broken armor stats means that dressing like a bin man provides more protection than a full-blown combat suit. Futuristic bulletproof military armor? Nah, I'm good, son. The game has a detailed crafting system, but there are a few problems. First up, it's incredibly broken. Every item you pick up or craft on PC adds data to the save file. Great. However, if that save file exceeds 8 megabytes in size, your save file is now corrupted and completely unplayable. Players with this issue log on to CDPR forums and ask if there's anything they can do to solve or prevent this issue. Eventually, they receive an answer.
Man. Oh my
Just stop playing the game. Okay. The visuals of CyberPunk are generally amazing. However, there are a few issues here as well. See, even though you never actually see yours in-game, CyberPunk 2077 grants you a plethora of options for your genitals. But wait, turns out there's a bug going round. And those genitals you've just customised are now clipping through every single pair of trousers you can put on. My god. Other visual bugs include headless men, glitchy trees, and a metric ton of T-posing, and more.
Good luck. Got a feeling we'll be...
Then there's the console performance.
I mean, if anything, it's entertaining.
In November 2020, CDPR said old-gen consoles were running surprisingly well. Just under a month later, we got to find out for ourselves. The population of Night City is decreased to the point where it looks almost abandoned. Graphics are absolutely abysmal, and the resolution bounces from 900p to as low as 720p. Even with all of these compromises, the FPS barely manages to hit 25, and often stoops to as low as 10. Then there's the rendering issues, paper mache faces, constant crashes. All in all, CyberPunk 2077 has a few technical issues. Early trailers of the game said everything is subject to change, and everything did. Trailers show clubbing and a host of other interactive activities. However, it turns out that about half of that was taken from the game's initial cutscene, and then forgotten about forever. Trailers also imply drive-by shooting and police pursuits, but neither of those are in the game either. In-game areas and promotional material suggest a massive metro system that you'd use to get around Night City. However, all of that was cut out and replaced with a fast travel system. A functioning metro system has since been modded into the game. The 1,000+ NPCs with their own routines are replaced with walking potatoes that literally despawn from the world the second they leave your field of view. They only have one piece of dialogue, can't defend themselves.
I actually really wouldn't mind playing a heavily modded out Cyberpunk 2077 where you got the subway, you got some of these missing features. I think that actually sounds like a very fun time.
And seemingly have no driving AI. Or any AI at all.
There you go.
Police system? Well, it's not really a thing. Shoot someone in the back of the skull with no one else around for miles? Unlucky. 2 cops have just spawned right behind your back. In any other game, that'd normally be an issue. But in Cyberpunk, literally just run 5 seconds away from them and they'll completely despawn from the world. Nice. Got a car? Even better, because cops in this game can't even enter a vehicle.
We're waiting.
Also, about the far-reaching player backstories, well, they only really change the first few minutes of the game. They also add a few unique dialogue options, but they have little to no effect on anything. Then there's the wall running, cut, multiple apartments, gone, non-linear missions, there's 1 or 2 in there, NPC routines, explorable buildings, okay. So the game doesn't have all the features in the trailers and articles, but it doesn't stop there. The game's baseline features are, well, subpar. So subpar that multiple videos are uploaded to YouTube, showcasing how Saints Row 2, GTA San Andreas, and even Half-Life 1's Cockroach AI is more advanced. Okay, at this point, it was clear. There was only one thing left to do.
I'm gonna ask for a refund.
Refunds, refunds, refunds. Refunds everywhere. CDPR is hit with a meteoric shower of refunds, and the game is in such a terrible state that, against their own general policies, Xbox and PlayStation actually allow them. By the way, PlayStation has to literally remove the game from their online store to do this. Naturally, the game is memed into oblivion, and CDPR is dragged through the gutter in the press and online for months to come. A few pieces of CDPR's marketing also becomes a lot more relevant. CDPR's stock price also absolutely craters and falls by 50% in a matter of weeks. Dear God, those investors do not look happy. They filed several class action lawsuits instantly. Nevertheless, the game still sells a ton of copies, and massive bonuses are dished out to management within a few months. Delicious. However, a few weeks later, and CD Projekt's PR team comes out of the shadows. Okay, yeah, the game's a bit rough. Here's a roadmap of how we're going to fix it.
So
that roadmap slowly changes over time as CDPR fail to hit deadline after deadline, but over the next few months, patches are added and the game slowly improves. Is that actual NPC AI? My God. It takes 6 full months of patches, but the game is eventually stable enough to be added back to the PlayStation Store. CD Projekt Red have since scaled back their plans for multiplayer, and are still patching the game to this day. So CD Projekt Red continues the slow rollout of updates in an attempt to restore the game to its original promise. But whether or not Cyberpunk is ever patched to the point it resembles the trailers of the game, one thing is certain. Gamers are done. While there has been the odd redemption,
True.
CD Projekt Red was the last straw. That was it. No more pre-orders. No more hype trains. No more anything. The lies were not going to work again.
Yeah.
But then they locked eyes with him. He whispers something in their ear about being 4 times the size.
4 times the size.
How could they resist? They'd won again, and they'll keep winning, because they know how to sell you a game, whether or not it's the same game that comes out at launch. From where you're sitting, it probably looks like an 18-carat run of bad luck. But the truth is, the games are rigged from the start.
The last few years have not been kind to Bethesda.
Bringing out the child in you, singing out the silence with more violence than Hal Hitler. He gets some looks of bullshit pull over, a dusty pullover and a Pulitzer, a musty busted crusty subwoofer sister. Foes is just bluffing, clear your nose from huff puffing, a glutton for bludgeoning, blood gushing. There you go.
I'm gonna take them out today after I make this video. That's yes, because I need to get some type of content out.
She has